My name is Adam Clay. For years, my life revolved around something most people would find mundane, taking care of bees. In a quiet corner of rural Massachusetts, I rented a small space in a barn owned by a retired schoolteacher named Eloise Parker. She was a gentle soul, the kind of person who made the world a little brighter just by existing. We were neighbors, but she became more than that to me. She was the only person who ever truly took care of me, who treated me with genuine kindness without expecting anything in return. Her warm smile greeted me every morning, and her compassion reminded me that goodness still existed in this world, full of darkness and corruption. I spent my days tending to my hives, harvesting honey, and finding a peace I had not known in my previous life. Before the bees, before Eloise, I was part of something much darker and more dangerous. I belonged to an elite covert organization known as the Beekeepers. We operated outside the boundaries of government control, tasked with protecting the foundations of society by eliminating corruption wherever it festered. We were trained to be efficient and relentless, capable of things that would make military special forces seem like amateurs. But I left that world behind, seeking solitude and simplicity among my bees. The hum of the hive became my meditation, replacing the chaos of my former existence. One evening, I walked to Eloise's house, carrying a jar of fresh honey. She had invited me for dinner, something we did regularly. When I arrived, the front door was open. Something felt wrong immediately. I moved inside carefully, my instincts from my past life kicking in without conscious thought. What I found shattered me completely. Eloise was gone, taken by her own hand. The scene before me was devastating, and I stood there frozen, trying to understand what had driven this beautiful soul to such a desperate act of finality. Within moments, her daughter arrived at the house. Verona Parker was an FBI agent, and she found me standing over her mother's body. Naturally, she assumed the worst, and had me arrested on suspicion of being responsible for Eloise's passing. I did not resist or argue. Grief had numbed me to everything else around me. The investigation quickly cleared my name when they found no evidence connecting me to what happened. Verona apologized and shared with me the horrifying truth about what had led her mother to that moment of despair. Eloise had fallen victim to a phishing scam. She had received a fake warning on her computer about viruses and called the number displayed on her screen. On the other end was a sophisticated criminal operation that manipulated her into giving them access to all her accounts. They drained everything, over $2 million that belonged to a children's charity she managed, along with her personal savings. The realization of what she had lost, of the people she had let down, broke her completely. These criminals had taken more than money. They had stolen her reason to live and crushed her spirit entirely. Something awakened inside me that day. The peaceful beekeeper retreated, and the operative I used to be emerged from the shadows. I reached out to my former organization and obtained information about the people responsible for destroying Eloise. The trail led to a call center in Springfield operated by a man named Mickey Garnett, a smug criminal who celebrated the misery of his victims. He ran the operation for a larger entity called United Data Group, which was part of an even bigger conspiracy reaching to the highest levels of power. I arrived at the call center with purpose and determination. The guards outside did not concern me, and I dealt with them efficiently. Inside, I made my intentions crystal clear to the scammers who had built their fortunes on human suffering. I gave them a chance to flee before I transformed their workplace into rubble. The building went up in flames, a symbolic cleansing of the poison they had spread across communities. This was only the beginning of my journey toward justice for Eloise and all the other victims they had destroyed. Garnett escaped the initial encounter, but not for long. He and his crew came looking for me at Eloise's property, thinking they could eliminate the threat I posed. They underestimated me severely. I neutralized his men systematically and captured Garnett himself. I extracted information from him about his superiors before ending his operation permanently. My message to those above him was unmistakably clear. I was coming for all of them, and nothing would stop me from completing my mission of justice. The trail led higher than I expected. Garnett's boss was a young tech executive named Derek Danforth, the privileged son of an extremely powerful woman. His company ran the data mining schemes that fed these phishing operations, stealing from innocent people and destroying lives for profit. When Derek learned about me, he turned to his head of security, a former intelligence director named Wallace Westwild. Wallace understood immediately what kind of threat I represented. He knew about the beekeepers and what we were capable of accomplishing when properly motivated. Wallace reached out to current intelligence officials, who attempted to solve the problem by sending my replacement after me. Another beekeeper was dispatched to eliminate me near a gas station in Springfield. She was skilled and determined, armed with impressive weapons and extensive training. But I had years more experience and a personal motivation that made me unstoppable in my mission. Our confrontation ended with her defeat, and afterward, my former organization declared itself neutral in the conflict. They would neither help nor hinder my mission going forward. I was on my own now, but that suited me fine. Meanwhile, Verona and her partner continued investigating the chaos I was leaving behind. They were piecing together the connections between the call centers, the data mining operations, and the Danforth family. I respected Verona's dedication to finding the truth through proper channels, but I knew the legal system was not equipped to deliver the justice that victims like her mother deserved. The people I was hunting had enough money and influence to evade consequences forever through lawyers and political connections. My next target was the 9-Star United Center in Boston, the hub that coordinated Derek's global scamming operations. Security forces and federal agents converged on the location, anticipating my arrival. Wallace had assembled a team of former Special Forces operatives, specifically trained to counter threats like me. They received extensive briefings about what beekeepers could do and how we operated. None of it was enough to stop what was coming for them. I infiltrated the building despite their preparations and advanced security systems. The confrontation was intense and prolonged, with multiple adversaries trying to stop my advance through the facility. I fought through security teams and law enforcement alike, driven by memories of Eloise and the countless other victims these criminals had created. I found the executive in charge and extracted the information I needed to confirm Derek's involvement in everything. Before leaving, I encountered Verona again. She tried to convince me to stop, to let the system handle things properly. I could see in her eyes that she understood why I could not simply walk away from this mission. The investigation Verona conducted afterward uncovered the full extent of Derek's crimes. He had used stolen money not just for personal wealth, but to fund his mother's presidential campaign. The current president of the United States had been elevated to power using funds extracted from vulnerable people through fraud and manipulation. This revelation meant my mission had implications far beyond personal vengeance. It was about protecting the entire nation from corruption at its highest levels of government. Derek believed he could hide behind his mother's protection. He retreated to her coastal mansion, surrounded by Secret Service agents and private security forces. Among his defenders was a man named Lazarus, who claimed to have successfully eliminated a beekeeper before in his career. Wallace coordinated the defense, believing that even I would not risk harming the president or her inner circle. They gathered an impressive force to stop me from reaching my target. They were wrong about my limitations and determination. I infiltrated the mansion during a large gathering, disguising myself among the many agents present. The security measures were impressive but insufficient against someone with my training and resolve. I worked my way through the defenses methodically, neutralizing threats without compromising my objective. The confrontation with Lazarus was particularly brutal, as he was one of the few opponents who could match my combat skills. Despite his experience and reputation, I prevailed after an intense struggle that tested both of us completely. Inside the mansion, events were unfolding that confirmed everything I had suspected. When confronted about the source of the campaign funds, Derek revealed the full scope of his scheme to his mother. He had manipulated data systems, organized massive fraud operations, and essentially purchased the presidency using money stolen from ordinary citizens. The president was genuinely shocked, having been unaware of her son's methods. She declared her intention to expose everything, even if it meant destroying her own position and legacy completely. Derek's response to his mother's threat of exposure was desperate and dangerous. He harmed a federal official and took her hostage, demonstrating that his selfishness knew no bounds whatsoever. By the time I reached the room, along with Verona and her partner, the situation was critical. Derek was prepared to harm his own mother rather than face consequences for his actions. His desperation made him more dangerous than ever before in his life. The moment arrived when I had to act decisively. Derek aimed at the president, intending to eliminate the witness to his confession. My shot was faster and more precise. I ended Derek's threat permanently, and then made my escape through a nearby window. Verona pursued me to the beach, where I had prepared my exit route with hidden diving equipment. She had a clear opportunity to stop me, but chose not to take it. Perhaps she understood that her mother's memory had been honored, that justice had been served in a way the courts never could have achieved for the victims. I disappeared into the ocean that night, leaving behind a world that would never know the full truth of what had happened. The president survived, the criminal operation was exposed, and the people responsible had faced consequences. My journey was complete, though the peace I once found among my bees seemed impossibly distant now. Everything had changed for me permanently. As I swam through the dark waters, I thought about Eloise and everything she had represented. She was kindness in a world that often rewarded cruelty. She was generosity in a system designed to exploit the generous. My actions could not bring her back, but they ensured that the people who destroyed her could never harm anyone else. That was the only closure available to me now. The beekeepers exist to protect the hive, to remove threats that endanger the collective. I had retired from that mission, but when the hive that mattered most to me was attacked, I discovered that some instincts never truly fade away. The man who tends bees and the operative who eliminates corruption are both parts of who I am. Perhaps they always will be. Somewhere in the darkness of the sea, I began planning my next chapter, uncertain where it would lead, but certain that I would face it with the same resolve that had carried me through this journey. Justice had been served, and for Eloise, that would have to be enough.